Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Lincoln Way Community High School District 210 Board of Education meeting for Thursday, April 15th, 2021. Please stand for the pledge if you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Of the United States of America.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Janik?
Here.
Miss Janice Doyle?
Here.
Mr. Kirking?
Here.
Mr. Lacine?
Here.
Mr. Lucetti?
Here.
Mrs. Stokes?
Here.
Mr. Kostick?
Here. There's no one signed up for public comment, but I understand we've got some correspondence.
We do. We'll run through these. The first is from Naomi Carl. I should hope our school board members meant to represent the student body will listen to our voices even without an election coming up. With AP tests coming up, having to miss school now would be detrimental to our learning. We have worked hard all year to get this far, and we have adapted to keep learning. Whether or not contact tracing rules change the stress and rearranging of our schedule this close to the end of the school year is not worth it. It's almost summer. The seniors have a school-sponsored social along with other possible activities. We don't need a full in-person schedule to fulfill our senior year, so please don't change everything for that reason. If any other, you might find more pressing than safety and student desires. I hope you do the right thing for my sake, yours, and the future of our district. Students want assurances that we will remain AB learning for the rest of the school year unless a return to full online is necessary. The next is from Nina Gentles. My name is Nina, and I am a student at East who has previously commented in meetings before, but I'd like to readdress the board to reiterate the return to full in-person learning would be disruptive to the pre-established environment. Please consider that with positivity rates on the rise in this country and nearly reaching the phase 4 threshold, returning to school with everyone would be a daunting measure to establish, especially within the last weeks of schools ahead. As a senior, I'd like to stay consistent with the schedule we have now to maintain some sense of normalcy in my final semester. Students want assurance that we will maintain AB learning for the rest of the school year unless return to full online is necessary. The next is from Dominic Rinker, a senior at Lincoln Way East. I am writing to you again to convey that as board members, you do not see the situation we face in our schools. Students are unified and persistent in our demand for assurances that we will not go back to full in-person. We are still complaining because we are getting mixed signals from school administrators. We continue to see desks moved into classrooms, and at East, lunchroom capacity needlessly increased despite many students being uncomfortable with the most dangerous part of their day at school. You've heard our complaints. We aren't lazy for wanting to be safe. We aren't hypocritical for working minimum wage jobs on our async days, and we aren't the same people who protested for sports to play. Students like me have taken 0-hour summer school for 4 years to get the AP classes we are taking now, and it's unfair to force us to choose between finishing those classes in an unsafe environment or go to a Acellus, which is simply not an option. When you compare our district to other full in-person districts, you need to account for what their online option is and how many students are taking it. Because our online option is disappointing, not many students are taking it. Other districts offer synchronous online instruction every day, making it easy for students to choose online because it is very similar to what they would get in person. We want to get out of the way so that our friends who learn better going to school every day have the capacity in school for that option, but because we don't have a fair online option, we can't do that. You're forced more of us to attend school, so when 80% of your students are uncomfortable with the school environment, you have to take our opinion into account. Hopefully we can stop worrying about this because our next gripe is with school administrators who do not enforce masking, yet another aspect of our situation you don't experience. Students want assurances we remain to AB learning for the rest of the school year unless a return to full online is necessary. Then the last is from John Scheffler. As a parent of a senior this coming fall school year, I'd like to address when there will be a decision on whether LW210 will continue to be in a hybrid schedule or full 5 days a week in-person learning. Please be specific, as parents will need time to find alternative schooling options if LW210 remains hybrid this fall. Oh, yeah.
Is there? I guess there was a student here that didn't realize they had to sign up.
Okay. Hello. So I am Teresa, and I am a senior at East. So I saw that the handbook was being reviewed today, and there are just 3 issues in it that I wanted to address. Many of these issues stem from the ways that Title IX policies are implemented through the handbook. So a lot of people aren't aware that Title IX policies regulate sexual harassment. Because usually it's just a sex discrimination issue, but sexual harassment policy is an important part of Title IX, and the school is required to follow it by law. So, like, one of the issues that I saw was that the policy is separated into 3 sections instead of being compiled into 1, which can make it unclear for readers and victims who attempt to understand the procedures before they report. So, to go over those 3 sections, the first is general harassment, and so the course of action that is detailed is not specific to sexual harassment. While sexual harassment is defined and included in this policy, there's nothing, there's like specific rules and guidelines that Title IX says to have to follow, and that's not really specified within that policy. So then there is a section, a second sexual harassment section, and it gives a narrower definition than the first one, which I think is a little strange. But it doesn't give any additional procedural information other than saying that you can use Title IX procedures to file a complaint, which is a little misleading, I think, because the Title IX procedure should have been the initial way in which someone would report that. So it shouldn't be filing a complaint as much as like the initial report. And then the third Title IX section goes against it just speaks about discrimination, which it does. Title IX doesn't require that you include that it covers sexual harassment. That policy should be elsewhere in the book, but it doesn't have to specifically say that in the Title IX section, which talks about discrimination. But it is a guidance in Title IX, and I would encourage that it be noted in that so people know their specific rights. So then the second issue I had was it doesn't really say the specific accommodations and rights for the people who report, and I think that's important because even though through the Salary Act the staff is required to be educated and they're required to tell people who report what these rights are, I think that it should just be in the handbook because some of these specific rights are actually violated in some ways by the handbook. So students have the right to not engage in investigation, although they're also protected from intimidation, and they may refuse police involvement. They may have the people who they accuse be removed from their classes. They have the right to choose mediation instead of an investigation, and they have the right to confidentiality. And this means that if they approached like a counselor and they told them that they didn't want, that they had this sexual harassment, but they didn't want an investigation to go forward, they would have the right to just talk about it with their counselor and utilize the school's resources without having an investigation. So the policy in the general harassment section says that any report of harassment, there's an immediate notification to the parents of the person who reported and to the parents of the people who they accused who reported, which it doesn't go with the Title IX policy because they should be able to have that confidentiality. The last issue I saw was that there's this like harassment officer, which is noted a lot in the general harassment policy, and there's no name or contact for this harassment officer. And I've also looked on the district website for this officer, and I can't figure out who it is. And I think it might be the Title IX officer, which is listed in the Title IX section. But I would encourage that you either say that they're the same person or put down the specific name and contact so people are able to get to them. So I think these are the main issues I saw. There's a couple additional procedural things that I didn't think were the best, but I would love if you would work with me in trying to change some of the procedures to make it more compliant and accessible with Title IX. And I'm sorry, my speech is so bad, but.
No,
Yeah.
that's fine. Very good job. I tell you what we'll do. I'll be over to East next week and go through a couple of those things with you. Everything that comes is obviously through board policy and also approved by the attorneys. in terms of confidentiality, we're mandated reporters. So when we get any teacher, any faculty member, any board member receives a report of any discrimination, abuse, harassment, we're mandated to report that. So in terms of the confidentiality, if there's a wrongdoing, we have to report that. But some of the other steps, I'll take you through and show you where that is and how that works. But I give you credit for coming up tonight and sharing your thoughts and opinions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Great job. Moving on, curriculum and instruction update. Dr. Fieri.
Well, good evening. Tonight's curriculum and instruction update focuses on Board Goal 1. Board Goal number 1 states that Lincoln Way will ensure that all students are provided with the curricular and extracurricular opportunities for college and career readiness. Underneath this board goal is our first objective, very specific to this school year. All students will be provided a comprehensive, viable, diverse curriculum during all models and modes of instruction. So as it became evident that this year was going to be one of the most challenging and unique school years that we have ever had, we knew that we needed to prepare and organize our curriculum for whatever was to come to best serve and support our students. Therefore, we spent extensive time starting last summer to prepare our curriculum for 3 possible modes of instruction: fully remote, remote AB, and blended hybrid AB, all of which we spent some time during the school year. So first, fully remote. This instructional model was designed for students who chose to commit to fully remote learning for the entire semester or school year. Starting last summer, our Acellus coordinator, Coley O'Connell, met with the curriculum directors and department chairs to best align the Acellus curriculum to our own. And from there, alternative education program EdOps took on a new role, fully remote learning. In addition to our 3 EdOps teachers, Coley, Kristen Zvonar, and Brian Flaherty, our activity coordinators were also assigned to be liaisons for these fully remote students. This also required training over the summer for them to learn the Acellus learning system and plan for what the school year might look like for fully remote learners. This team has provided daily meetings, check-ins, and social-emotional support to make sure our fully remote learners were on track, supported, and felt part of Lincoln Way. In addition, over 40 teachers from across every department were also available to our fully remote students so that each student was fully supported academically by the Lincoln Way teachers in each department area. The second instructional model that we needed to prepare our curriculum and instruction for was remote AB. This model was needed during the few weeks during the year when it was necessary for all students and staff to be at home remote learning and teaching every day. In order for our teachers to instruct our curriculum remotely according to this schedule, our teachers began preparing last summer by organizing the curriculum and their instruction in Microsoft Teams. And then were trained in the use of WebEx, Lincoln Way's version of Zoom, in order to remotely instruct students each day. Our teachers were each provided with professional development time and pay to prepare for teaching in this manner. And remote teaching and learning in every course across every department was born. Our current instructional model, the one that we've spent the most of the year in, has been our blended or hybrid AB model. Like remote AB, this model required department chairs and teachers to carefully organize the curriculum to be instructed, and in this case, synchronously and asynchronously. Our teacher teams looked at each curricular unit and decided what learning activities were best instructed and conducted in person, and what learning activities could be accomplished independently on asynchronous days. Our teachers have done an excellent job making these instructional decisions, enabling them to deliver the entire curriculum this year just by organizing the instruction differently into in-person and independent AB learning days. Additionally, the blended AB model has allowed our teachers to focus on the students in front of them, enabling them to devote full attention to the in-person students each day. In this case, teachers are able to create higher learning and application activities, lead more in-depth discussion, answer more clarification questions, and engage in more meaningful hands-on activities. The next two objectives under this board goal were accomplished last summer and fall by our department chairs and curriculum leaders. First, we double-checked that our curriculum included what ISB was declaring as priority standards, which it certainly did. In all areas, our curricular expectations far exceeded the state. Next, we audited our curriculum against the recently amended Illinois mandated units of study, and once again, our curriculum meets and surpasses what the state expects of curricular programming. So the last two objectives under this board goal include an equity audit and curriculum platform research. Currently, our district is working with consultant Dr. Yvette Dubiel to create an equity action plan for our district. Under this action plan will be the curriculum audit mentioned in this objective. Therefore, we plan to continue this goal's objective into the 21-22 school year when the equity audit will actually take place. As for the curriculum management platform research, this was put on hold due to the circumstances of the school year and will resume this summer and fall. No doubt, this has been one of the most challenging and unusual times for our district, but thanks to the work of our curriculum leaders, our department chairs, our teachers, the Lincoln Way curriculum that our community respects and demands has remained intact. We also know that we have a lot of work to do this summer and in this fall as we transition back to full in-person learning, which I know we definitely all look forward to. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the regular meeting minutes of March 18th, approval of the closed meeting minutes of March 18th, approval of the payrolls of March 19th and April 2nd. Does anyone wish to have anything pulled from the consent agenda for discussion? With that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion, and I have a second by Mr. Lacine. Linda, if you'd open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to the action items. Presentation of invoices for March 19th through April 15th, 2021.
Motion to approve the invoices in the amount of $1,371,652.43 dated April 15th, 2021.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Linda, if you'd open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to the treasurer's report for March 2021.
Good evening. In tonight's package, you'll see the March 31st Treasurer's Report, in which the district recognized $1.78 million in revenue while expending $7.04 million in expenses, leaving the district's operating cash balance, or total cash balance, at $15.75 million. As for the monthly cash flow variance, we did have a positive overall variance of $568,000. I will note it's been difficult during COVID to pin down how we're going to be receiving things, so our variances have been a little higher, but we're still doing very well on a cash flow basis. When you look at our cash flow compared to the prior years, March 31st, we are $17.9 million better than in the prior year. As far as revenue goes, we are trending 2.5% behind the prior year for total revenue. I like to break down the revenue into two major groups. We have the non-tax revenue and then the tax revenue. For non-tax revenue, we are trending about 1.7% below budget, or about $5.3 million we expect to be under budget. As far as tax revenue goes, that's going to really be a new one. We're going with these 4 payments with Will County. We have estimated for cash flow purposes we could be as short as much as $8 million within the FY21. However, remember, we'll collect that in FY22. That will be important to us, though, just for cash flow purposes, but it will balance out between the years. Also note that we received notice this week for the federal ESSER 2 and 3 funds. We'll be getting $504,000 in ESSER 2 and $910,000 in ESSER 3, which we will not expect to actually receive into FY21 or 23 or 22 or 23 once we make those qualified expenditures. As far as expense goes, our overall expenditures are trending about 8% behind. We estimate that this could bring us in as much as $9 million under budget. Depending on where that tax revenue comes, we are expecting at this point to have a very small operating deficit and be about break even across all funds when you're including our health insurance transfer. Also, please note in the cash flow report tonight, you will notice that we have in there a interfund loan from transportation and O&M to the Ed Fund. That's going to be approved later on tonight, and this will allow us to not need to draw on any TAWs as we're just using some surplus in the other two funds to help make it through on the Ed Fund. And then I'd open it for any questions.
Hey, Brad, it's Chris. Question on that statement you had at the end, which you just mentioned. So you said overall, the district is expecting to have a small operating funds deficit, but you don't really put in what your assumptions are on that. Is your assumption what you had mentioned earlier, which is tax revenue would be about $8 million below what you're expecting? Because it could be up to 18 million short. So I was just wondering what your assumptions are on that last line.
Yes, thank you. The assumptions are is that we would be 18 million short of the 50-50 split between the two fiscal years. So 18 million. And if we are, then that would give us an overall just basically about a break even. So that's accounting for 7.2 million that we're getting in the health insurance, and then the difference between where we think we'll be with the revenue and expenditures, keeping in mind that we had a budgeted surplus to begin with. So that's where we're kind of estimating we'll be at this point.
But Brad, have we received any early indication from Will County in terms of what the collection might look like, or is this an assumption and kind of a worst-case scenario?
Absolutely. We've received, well, it's a new ground for us all because, last year they passed the 4 payments. Now, granted, it's a different situation this year. Last year they just announced that they could do the 4 payments, but there was, and, people kind of got noticed via the paper or whatever. But anyway, last year it had very little impact on us. This year is different, and yes, I would say, Dr. Tingley, you're correct. This is kind of the worst-case scenario, but it is different in the fact that now the tax bills are being mailed out with 4 coupons attached to them. So that is a difference than in the prior year. So, but that is worst-case scenario where I think we will break even. Remember, this is going to balance itself out with these taxes across into the next fiscal year.
Thank you.
Does that answer the question,
Yep.
Mr. Lachetti?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I
Thank you.
I think the mortgage servicers will have a hard time switching to making 4 payments, so. Pardon? Yeah, right, exactly.
They're just going to make their 2 and that they're used to. They want to change their computer programs for 1 year. No. There's nothing further for Brad. I'd entertain a motion to accept the treasurer's report for March 2021 as presented. Motion, I have a second. Second. Thank you, Mr. Lucene. Linda, if you'd open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to student activities for March 2021.
Included in your backup materials is the activity fund balance for month ended March 31st. There was one account in the negative, Girls Basketball Central. Timing differences will be resolved with the receipt of summer camp registrations. And then we're asking for approval of a new account. That would be a UNICEF club at Central. It's a youth-led initiative that partners with U.S. Fund for UNICEF to educate, advocate, and fundraise to support UNICEF's life-saving work across the globe. The club will conduct fundraisers to donate money to the programs that support children around the world with life-saving assistance, including health, education, nutrition, and emergency relief. So we would ask the board to approve the student activity account as presented.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, I entertain a motion to approve the student activities report for March 2021 as presented.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Linda, if you'd open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on, personnel.
Under personnel, we have employment. We have Kimberly Rose, bus driver, and Linda Schaefer, bookkeeper. I ask the board to approve the employment report as presented.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? You'd open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passed.
Thank you. Moving on to resignations.
Under resignations, we have Elizabeth Bobeck, paraprofessional, Cynthia Ferdinand, bus driver, Brian Flaherty, head boys basketball coach, Brian Holba, part-time dean, Susan Host, main office secretary, Elizabeth Highland, assistant athletic director, George Oakley, bus driver, Jessica Patterson, special services teacher, part-time dean, and Corinne Tomzak, dispatcher. I ask the board to approve these resignations as presented.
Thank you. Can I get a motion, please? Motion, can I get a second?
Second.
Motion, a second, and a third. Any questions? All right, Linda, if you'd open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Finally, retirements.
Under retirements, we have Ed Johnson, bus driver, asking to retire May 27th, 2021. I ask the board to approve this retirement as presented.
Thank you. Can I get a motion, please?
So move.
Motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Linda, if you'd open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on, interfund loan from transportation, O&M funds to the education fund.
Once again, this is something that Brad brought up during his report, but we'd recommend that the board approve the interfund loan as presented to allow us to not take out any TAWs the rest of the year. The loans will be repaid at the end of the fiscal year once we start the 2020 tax collections.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Based on the payments being split up into 4, if that does occur, we'll still have enough money to pay this loan back, right?
Yes,
yeah.
this is in preparation for that, so.
Okay.
Any further questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the interfund loan from Transportation O&M to the Education Fund as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Linda, if you'd open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on, textbook adoptions.
Included in your backup material are textbook adoptions for the 21-22 school year. These have been on display, and we followed all the appropriate regulations for textbook adoptions for the high school. This is, all the dollar amounts have been included in the 5-cast, and once again, we've put together a 5-year spending plan for textbook adoptions, and these are the next in the cycle. Dr. Fury is here to answer any questions that anyone may have. If not, we would ask a recommendation to approve the textbooks as presented.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Any questions or discussion for Dr. Fury? None? Linda, if you'd open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to our informational items. Report from the Lincoln Way Special Education District 843 Governing Board meeting from March 23rd. Deidre, it looks like you had a busy one there.
Yes, it did. Yes, we did. We had several of the teachers to actually come in and, voice their opinion about reopening, and so it was pretty emotional, but at the end of the day, we maintained and we voted to maintain the current state of affairs the way that they were, the shortened day that they had. And also, I think majority of us were in this past election, so I think all of us actually won our election as well.
Thank you. FOIA requests.
Just one request, and it is in your backup materials.
Thank you. Building and grounds.
Also in your backup materials, Mr. Wilkie's here if anyone has any particular questions.
Anyone? All right. Community relations.
Same pride sheet is in your materials.
And asset of the month.
Asset of the month for May. Once again, responsible decision-making, interpersonal competence. Kids have empathy, sensitivity, and friendship skills. When your children do things that hurt other people's feelings, talk with them about their behavior and how that would affect others. At school, expose students to life experiences of other people in concrete ways. And in the community, take time to listen to kids express their feelings, encourage them to listen to each other. That is for May.
Thank you. District 210 Advisory. Beth, anything?
The 210 advisory is actually done for the year. So we wrapped up last month, and we will reconvene in September with the start of the new school year.
Excellent. First reading for the proposed school handbook changes.
The first reading is included in your backup materials. There are just a few changes. If there are any questions or concerns prior to the next meeting, please reach out to me or bring them prior so we can make any adjustments, but we will look for the approval of the handbook in the May meeting prior to publishing for the upcoming school year.
Dr. Tingley, one of the things that I would, you're going to be meeting with the young lady you mentioned. If at all, I would like to reach out just to kind of see whether or not how it's addressed or the concern, or is it clear as to the process in regards to that?
Correct, and I think the steps are in there. The question would be the person, the contact person, and we keep that in policy because sometimes that changes once the school year starts. So within one board meeting, we can change the person. But I will sit down with her and we will go through those, and I'll report back to the board, certainly.
Thank you. Legislative report.
There will be a lot going on in Springfield right now. Typically, we receive the updates on Friday, so we'll see if we have anything. One of the bills that is out there now would be the consolidation study, consolidation of school districts. Ours is large and may not be part of that, but they are looking, the proposal is to consolidate up to 40% of the school districts in the state of Illinois. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how that moves through the channels.
Thank you. Any district report?
Superintendent's report, I did put in your backup materials a proposal that we'll discuss at the next meeting. So of the ESSER funds that we are receiving, of the roughly 1.5 million, 20% has to be earmarked towards learning loss. And one of the items that we've kind of gotten out of sequence is our standardized testing. You know, in the spring of 2020, our students were scheduled to take a class of 21 SAT, 22 PSAT 10, 23 PSAT 9. We didn't do that. Spring of 21, the class of 22 took an SAT, but the others we did not. So what we would propose next fall, and I'll bring exact numbers back for approval next month, but next fall, class of 22 seniors would take the Illinois Science Assessment. That's something we didn't do this year because of capacity and timing limitations. But we would ask that next year the freshmen take the PSAT 9 to be purchased by the district at $13 a student. The sophomores would then take the PSAT 10 to be purchased by the district. And then the class of 23 juniors would take the PSA NIM Squat, which would continue to be purchased by the district at $29,000. That's something we've always done. So then that would allow us a benchmark right there in the fall to evaluate where our students are, to determine what, if any, additional remediation would need to take place prior to the spring testing. It would also give us a benchmark for our freshmen and sophomores as we continue to monitor their growth for year to year. So the additional cost to the district would be roughly $60,000, and once again, that would fall within learning loss under the ESSER. So if there's any questions, we'll do our best to answer them now. If not, that would be a component of some of the plan to use 20%, within 20% of that money for the learning loss. We're developing a plan now for summer and moving into fall that will detail and break down some of those components. We know we'll be doing curriculum development and work this summer. We're monitoring and we'll be adjusting some of our math, some of our reading, but there'll be a detailed plan and how that will fit in as we move throughout the summer. We typically utilize professional development Title I funds over the summer for curriculum work, curriculum revision. We'll be able to do this now with those additional funds that we'll be receiving, and that will move into next year's budget.
How much is the ESSER's money again? 1.4?
All in will be 1.4, 1.5 million. And as Brad said, the majority of that will be spent in the next 2 fiscal years.
So would we be looking to do this for the next 2 years? Or this is just a one-time?
The proposal is going to be for next fall, and that will provide us our benchmark. Obviously, our juniors will be testing again in the spring, but we will likely want to go again in the fall and start a cycle with this testing.
Any other district business or correspondence?
No, none at this time.
With that, I'd entertain a motion to move into closed session to discuss collective negotiating. Motion to have a second.
Sorry.
Okay. Everyone all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? It's unanimous, the ayes have it. We're not anticipating any action after closed session tonight.